Hey guys, it's the History Nerd, and we're here with a new Hearts of Iron series, Fascist America. So I had some computer issues, I guess last week now, and I had to replace the hard drive and some other things. Anyway, all the old saves were gone because I don't use cloud saving because I guess quite frankly, I'm an idiot. Regardless, Canada's gone. So we've got to start a new series, obviously, because I can't play a game that doesn't exist, or a save that doesn't exist. So I decided, hey, you know what might be interesting is a fascist America, but, and critically, not a, before I get too far along, let's get the WPA going right away. Not an Axis US. So my plan is for a fascist America to build an empire based in the Americas. So imagine the Monroe Doctrine on steroids being implemented by violent nationalists. And you'll kind of get the idea of what I'm going for. I hope anyway. So, the reason we're going for the WPA right away is because this gives us 150 political power, allowing us to get a fascist political advisor right off the bat. One of the issues with the US, especially with the way that I'm going to be playing this, is that we're not going to get out of the Great Depression for a while, so political power is actually going to be something that we're going to have to concern ourselves with, which is a little bit different from any of the other nations that I've played. So that's just something to keep in mind. And we're not going to be going pro-Axis. I mean, if the Axis wind up being incredibly successful with their war in Europe, then perhaps we'll work with them in maybe taking down the Soviet Union. But I don't want America to be a part of, the Axis. They're forming their own geopolitical group. And the plan is to have, basically every country in America, actually. Let's get rid of the close air support on the aircraft carriers as well. One last one, there we go, and we will get more torpedo bombers in as time permits. We will stop production of those carrier fighters because it's pretty useless at the time being. Well, not useless, but you understand. Something like that should be good. We'll work through all of those. I think what we'll do is we'll assign, well, we should get our fleets organized first, so let's get this together, create a new fleet of just the submarines, and we can close off. Rename this to be the Atlantic Fleet. Oh, almost knocked over a water bottle. That could have been disastrous. And this will be the Atlantic Submarine Squad. We'll do the same over here. I guess we can have time tick by while I'm doing the fleet reorganization, which is a little tedious, but nothing all that too bad. We'll get these guys submarine squad, and we'll get these guys over to Honolulu because why wouldn't you want to be based in Honolulu? And then we'll go check out the Asian fleet over here. We'll take the 2nd Submarine Squadron. We'll send them back to Honolulu as well. There you are. Get going over there. And then we've got our little Asiatic fleet, which I think we're going to dump in at least... well, we can send you probably to the Atlantic Submarine Squadron. There we go. We'll send that definitely to the Asiatic Fleet. And do we need a dozen destroyers added to the Asiatic Fleet? I don't really think so. Although 25 destroyers out there would be able to help out a little bit with Pacific fleet projection. These are... No, they're just level 1 destroyers. Well, damn. I guess we will just send those out to the Asiatic fleet. And I could change that around if I wanted to, but I do want to do a little bit of fleet research before pursuing things too heavily. For the main buildup, we are going to be focusing on fleet production. Because manpower-wise, we're going to be stuck for a while, again, in the Great Depression. Once we get up to a point where we can have, you know, extensive conscription and a proper war economy, things will get a little bit better, but it is going to take a little bit of work to get the U.S. in a position to be able to start projecting its vast power across the Americas. We are going to need some more military factories, so let's get on those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I think that'll... Yeah, I like building my military factories in groups of 5 because that's the bank that you fill up. And we'll probably want that, and I'm going to guess that we should... Well, I guess we're making more... we'll get production sorted out. We're not on a huge time crunch for production. Let's get our research going, because we need to. Obviously get fighter research going, and then all the industry research after. So we'll get some of that, and we'll get some of that. There we go. So, yeah, starting off the game, the U.S. needs to research that fighter. We'll probably be focusing in on... Oh, I guess we can... Wow, we got a lot of shipyards. Okay, let's get the important ships built first. A single porpoise class submarine. That's nothing too important. Right, so that's that sorted. What do we got? We got our little Caribbean fleet there. We are going to need to make a fleet for the Gulf because obviously we're going to be doing a lot of fighting in this area initially. And having a couple of battleships and a couple of aircraft, well, even the aircraft carriers aren't all that necessary because we're not going to be facing too much in the way of navies. But I do like, from a roleplay perspective, that the U.S. Focuses on aircraft production, or aircraft carrier production, because it makes sense to me that the United States Navy would be doing that. What we do have, if we take a look at the Atlantic Fleet, we've got the single USS Ranger class. And then if we were to go build some new ships, we've got the Yorktown class, which is a modified Ranger, which is just better. So the Ranger isn't exactly a ship that we're going to want to necessarily continue production of. So we will base our Gulf fleet around that ship for now. So we'll order them down, and we'll see if we can borrow a couple of battleships. We got 6 there, and I think we got 9 over in the Pacific Fleet, if I remember. So we'll probably take 3 of these guys. We'll go with the California, the Maryland, and the Oklahoma. For no real reason other than I just happened to pick them, and we'll send them over there. So perhaps it would be better to send those destroyers to the Gulf Squad, or to the Gulf Fleet. Let's do that. Gulf Fleet, and then we can combine the Caribbean Fleet into that as well, because that's just 10 destroyers. And that'll be helpful to have, you know, 22 destroyers in the Gulf. That seems ridiculous. But, you know, fleet numbers, it's easy to build up a big fleet with America, which is kind of why I enjoy playing with them. We've got our cavalry unit that I am going to just disband. It kind of sucks because they were, you know, regulars, but we'll be able to get those guys trained up very, very quickly. We got the last little trickle of infantry, so I think we're going to need 3 more infantry groups, or infantry divisions trained. One of the other things that I should do, infantry and National Guard, like change those guys over to infantry. And basically for anybody here, make them infantry, and then we'll have to go over to Hawaii and make you infantry as well. That way, taking a look at it. So if we take a look at the 2 infantry divisions we have here, we've got your bog standard infantry, 3x3 with some artillery and some engineers. If we take a look at the National Guard, it's 4x3. So it's bigger. So yeah, bigger is better, right? Well, I don't necessarily think that. I think having the smaller infantry divisions actually work out better because you can have more of them. That's my thinking anyway. We got all of our colonial garrisons, if you will. Might not be exactly correct to call those guys a colony, but they're colonial garrisons. So we've got let's get naming these things, the 1st U.S. Army. And we can get those guys training just 1 group, and we'll get up to 24. So the army plans I plan on having a lot of, 24 division infantry army stacks. And then for our armor, we'll have stacks of 12 motorized, 12 tanks. I'm going to hold off on medium tanks if I can, because medium tanks are obviously better than light tanks, and I don't necessarily want to have to go through the process of swapping over all the production. First off, creating a bunch of light tank units that I'm probably not going to have to use until we go for Mexico. And by the time we're ready to go for Mexico, we're going to be in a position time-wise that medium tanks are going to be the way to go, not necessarily light or heavy. One of these days I do want to play a game with heavy tanks, but from a manufacturing perspective, putting my war manager's hat on, I can't justify the creation of heavy tanks because they're just so damn big. Well, it's not that they're so damn big, it's an entire other production line, so we'd have to focus purely on heavy tank design, which, either way we're going to wind up with the Patton tank in 1945. We just get, better advancements as time goes on if we follow the medium than if we went from the T1 to the M6 to the Pershing. So, I mean, the T95, it's not that I don't like heavy tanks, I do. From a production perspective, I can't justify making them. For our Air Force, we're going to be going for fighters, obviously, and tactical bombers to start. I'd like to get strategic bombing built up, especially for wars with potentially larger nation groups like Canada. Canada's going to be the real trick, because, that's going to drag us into a war with the Allies. I would prefer to leave that for as long as possible. I don't want to go declaring war on the Allies without having, good allies of my own in the Americas. So there's 2 different routes we're going to be taking here. With larger nations like Mexico, we're going to be puppeting them. And then ultimately what I would like to do is take Central America and split it between a larger Mexico, perhaps down into Nicaragua. Wow. Should have really warmed up my old mouth so I could say nation names like Nicaragua. Perhaps even into Costa Rica. Panama itself will become American land, and then we'll figure out how to split up South America between, properly ideological allies. So already we've got a friend in Venezuela who's a fascist government, which is great, because that means with our first war, which will likely be an invasion of Cuba, we'll be able to create our own faction. And that's key to this, because like I say, I don't want to join the Axis, I don't want to join the Allies, I don't want to join the Comintern. I want to have my own faction. The what was it? The American faction of the American League of Fascists, or ALF, I think is the name I'm going to be going with. So that's the plan geopolitically. Getting allies in Mexico, expanding in the Caribbean for America proper. So obviously Cuba, the island of Hispaniola. And then we'll split up the the French and British lands in here accordingly. I imagine, we'll probably wind up wanting to or needing to giving some stuff over to Mexico and potentially a fascist Canada. Now, the way civil wars work in this game is a little... It works well in Europe, let me put it that way. For America, I've played a few fascist games, and the civil war in America can get weird. You don't have, by the time politically, internally in your nation, you don't necessarily have a huge army. And what happens with the Civil War is the nation will get divided up based upon I don't know what. And your army will get divided up based upon I don't know what as well. So you wind up in a situation where you've got, like, the one I had most recently, I had 8 infantry divisions out of the stack of 24 that I had built up. The normal US got the rest, and I had a border that stretched from, Michigan to Florida to defend with 8 divisions. There wasn't a way for me to swap over my conscription laws or military production laws, and so granted, obviously I was facing a superior number of troops, but just considering the size of front that winds up happening in the American Civil War compared to the amount of units you get, it's a very slow process. So I'm going to be avoiding a civil war in America as best I can, and I don't think we'll be kicking off a civil war in Canada just because of the way those things work. So the plan for Canada is to invade and puppet, same as Mexico, same likely as Brazil, although I might try going for other smaller South American nations and cutting into Brazil, making them a bit more manageable. Regardless, I want the entire 2 continents of America in my faction and fascist. That's the goal of the campaign. From there, if we decide that we're in a good position to, say, strike out at the Soviet Union, or, finish off the Allies once we turn Canada, we'll take it from there. Canada's probably going to be the last step in the conversion of certainly North America, possibly even South America. We will see. But that's many, many years down the road. Initially, we need to focus on building up America, and we need to focus on building up the military. Like I said before, I'm going to put a relative high focus on building up the Navy, because I like building ships, I like having big fleets, and America's one of the few countries where you can actually effectively do that. So, that's that plan. Anyway, I've managed to talk through almost a full month of game time going at speed 1. That is incredible. Thank you guys for sitting through 20 minutes of me rambling and telling about the plan. I am going to be back when I've got something more exciting to share with you guys, so I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, so we're a couple of days further along on actually the date of my birth, not the 36-bit, but the February 15th bit. I've got the Caribbean fleet renaming. Oh geez, don't even get me started on that. I don't think there's a way, I think it just picks a name at random is really what it is. So when I merged, the aircraft carriers in with the battleships, it became U.S. battleship fleet, whatever. And then when I added the destroyers from the Caribbean fleet, it became the Caribbean fleet. So fine, you're the Caribbean fleet. We've got the Ranger, the battleships, a bunch of destroyers, a bunch more destroyers coming in. But as you can see, we need a new ship to build. So we are going to go down and we're going to start production on the Yorktown. And what I would like to do is even out the fleet production so that we've got, 11 shipyards per ship. So we'll go ahead, we'll get that up. Naval bombers and fighters together are fine. I don't care about close air support. I don't think necessarily that they're all that useful. I think if you're going to be loading up your carriers with bombers, just do naval bombers. They'll be much better at naval strikes. It's my experience anyway. I don't know if that's true. That's just how I feel. So we're going to get 2 Yorktowns built for the Atlantic fleet. Same carrier output. Good. And once we're done there, we'll get 2 more over for the Pacific fleet, and then likely take these 2 Lexington-class carriers and move them over into the Caribbean fleet. So we'll have 3 carriers there, 2 in the Atlantic, 2 in the Pacific, and then as we advance further, we'll get 2 more in the Atlantic, 2 more in the Pacific, and we'll figure out what to do with the Caribbean. We'll probably get 1 more, probably a Midway class. So if we take a look at carriers specifically, we've got the Ranger, we got the Essex next, and the Midway. I don't know if we'll ever wind up building any Essex class carriers, because if we take a look at carrier primacy, it gives us 2 times 50% research bonus for carrier models. So I'm fine utilizing that tech boost rather inefficiently to research the Midway by like 1940, 1941. So we can have a very, very advanced aircraft carrier very, very early. And that'll make all the difference in the world to our fleets. But as it stands now, we're going to need to probably pick up some chromium from, let's say the UK. Let's start trading with them so we can keep our relations up and not have to worry about the Allies coming after our fascist little party that we're building. While they're focusing on a completely different fascist party over in the Europes. And, yeah, I think that's it. So like I say, we're waiting for the WPA. That's 9 days out. Might as well just quickly tick the time by. Well, I mutter about things. So, I'm hoping this turns into a good series. Are we really... Okay, let's get those guys producing the most. I think swapping around the division types kind of messes with supplies and things. Because you would think removing 3 infantry regiments from a division would open up rifles and shit, but no, apparently not. The Rhineland's remilitarized and we got the WPA. So we are going to go to modify our government, and step the first is to get Charles Coughlin here, or Colin, I'm not really sure. To get fascism going on the rise, we're going to go with the younger generation. We'll take up the torch. Like I say, I want to avoid the American Civil War as much as I possibly can, and it's totally possible to do that. At some stage, the government will just swap, combining switch and swap to one glorious swip word. The nice thing about that, above anything else, is you get, you don't lose any equipment. So, like, if we fought a civil war, obviously the fleets would get split up, right? And it is, I gotta say, it's one of the most fun things to do as Britain is to have a fascist civil war, because you get good big navy fights, and it's hard to get good navy fights in this game, because navy, not a lot of people build navies. We don't need to worry about any of those. We'll just get rid of all of that. So with Britain, it's really fun to have a fascist civil war because you'll get big, battleship groups out in the English Channel fighting each other. Well, Brits slaughter Brits on the island. It's, it's neat in a video game. But like I say, civil wars work in Europe. They don't work in a big nation like America. So, and I'd much rather not lose half of the U.S. Navy because we have a massive Navy. I don't know if we can see, total ships. We've got 3 carriers, 15 battleships, 16 heavy cruisers, 10 light cruisers, 119 destroyers, and 78 submarines. I don't want any of that getting used up by a civil war. I want all of that. We gotta worry about power projection to conquer half the world. Well, maybe not half, maybe a third. Regardless, it's going to take some work. And speaking of the invasion preparations, obviously step 1 is to get the first U.S. Army up to full strength. Step 2 will be getting the Marine Corps up and going. And for that, we're going to need to devote quite a lot into funding the Navy. We're going to want to get down here quicker than, quicker than not quick. The trick, like I say, with the Great Depression is because of that, we only ever gain 1 political point a month. So the next thing that I'm doing, what I might do, I haven't really decided, but get someone like Taft here to get our political power gain up by 15%, just so we can have a national focus and still gain a little bit of political power to change our government. So we're going to need to change our government too. The Great Depression, it is difficult, and the only way to get rid of it is to issue war bonds. The only way to issue war bonds is if you're at war with one of the superpowers. So, we might not be able to get rid of the Great Depression until we're ready to go after Canada, which sucks. Because I don't want to face, the weight of the Allies. And I could be overplaying it in my head. We'll see how successful Germany is in Europe to really gauge our ability to go after the British when the time comes. Because I won't have to fight the Raj too, and Australia, New Zealand, sending over random transport invasions into my Pacific holdings. It's one hell of a war that's going to take a lot to work through. We're going to need a military built up to fight that war, because obviously it's going to be an offensive war, but we're not really in a political position to be able to build up the nation the way we need it to. So it's tricky, but that's okay. We can probably do to get another 5 military factories up. We really don't have to worry about civilian factories with America. Spanish Civil War, not much we can do because we're still a democracy, so we can't send aid to anybody, but we certainly could work on getting some research. I think we might as well go with the concentrated industry. Seems like a good plan to me. I went with, obviously, the mechanical computer because research bonus. So it's always good to get those things researched quicker than later. Construction and excavation, obviously, are going to be important. We have a lot of raw materials. We don't really necessarily need to worry too much about trading, except for things like chromium. And, once we get a good chunk, if not all of the Americas secured, maybe we'll look to Turkey, who has some chromium, and who might, want to join in, whether forcefully or otherwise. Time will tell. All right, these guys are ready to deploy. We'll put them down green, because it doesn't really matter that they're green, because, now they're training and they won't be green once training's done. So that's good. Step 1, we got the U.S. Army, or the first U.S. Army, full strength, ready to go, all infantry. And yay. So we'll get those guys trained up. We got so many of those points. Can we just... Because, oh no, that's still going to take 70 days. Alright, we'll wait until that gets back up to 150 so I could add in the workhorse, and then we'll start going down the Navy tree so we can start building up some Marines. Because it's pointless to not use those tech boosts on the Marines, and it is very specific. Oops, that's not the screen that I wanted to see. It is very specific for Marines 1 and 2. So if you get those by the time you've already researched Marines 1, it's a complete and total waste of time. And it's not like we're running out of things to research. We have plenty of things we need to research. Specifically, like after the Warhawk is done, we're going to need to get a brand new carrier aircraft, or brand new carrier fighter. There we go. That's the combination of words I'm looking for. Researched and produced. We're going to need to get our naval bombers. Need to get those guys in production. And in fact, might not be a bad idea to start those production lines right away. Let's get that research going. And over here, let's get excavation done so we can move on with that. And yeah, I'll see you guys when something exciting happens. See you in a bit. Alright, so we got Taft working for us, which means it's time to start into our naval research. So Bureau of Ships, which will get us some ship production bonuses going, is going to be the next selection. And then we're going to be following, fund the Navy, expand the USMC. We might go for amphibious operations as well, but this isn't as necessary, certainly not for our first few targets. Taking over Cuba is certainly possible with 10 Marine divisions and the first U.S. Army. So the plan for Cuba, which we'll obviously see in reality when we're ready to do it, but we're going to be launching an invasion from Miami into Havana, right into Havana, take the capital. 10 Marine divisions should be able to do that, especially with the land bombardment assistance of the battleships and from any bombers that we will have produced to bomb the island. So that's good, and then we can take the first army and push down into Cuba as far as we need to. It will surrender relatively quickly. I'm fairly certain, so that's a good thing. One thing that I wouldn't mind doing, I've put in another order for 5 military factories, so those will get produced as time goes by, but I also want to get the airfield in Florida up to 2,000 so we can have a good strong amount of bombers and fighters there. I don't think Cuba's going to have much, if anything, in the way of an air force, but it's always better to be safe than sorry. And yeah, that's pretty much where we're at now. So working on the Bureau of Ships. For the Marine Corps, our manpower needs to tick up, and critically, I can't just go to Cuba right now and justify a war goal. We need political power to do it, but there's also, geopolitical situations. World tension needs to be at a certain point for us to actually be able to pull off the justification and declaration of war against Cuba. So it is still a couple of years away, but that's fine. That allows us to build up the military infrastructure to actually be able to successfully pull off this invasion quickly and efficiently. And then from Cuba, like I say, Hispaniola, these two nations will obviously need to become ours as well, and that'll give us a good position in the Caribbean to strike out, into other places. We'll have good bombing air bases to be able to set up on these 3 islands. Good launching points for invasions, specifically into Mexico. Well, specifically everywhere, really. So let's get our tactical bomber research rolling, because that's going to be the mainstay of our bomber force. Like I say, the strategic bombers are kind of an end goal, and I might not even be building mass amounts of strategic bombers until we get way down into the jet era, and I'll be able to launch them, from wherever, I think. I don't know what the range is on jet bombers, but I imagine it's pretty far. So, hopefully we'll be able to base things in perhaps Newfoundland or, the east coast of America and make it to Europe. I don't know. We'll see. We might need to go to war with Portugal and get the Azores. Wouldn't be against that. The Bureau of Ships is done. That's lovely. So let's fund the Navy, which will get us a little bit of a doctrine research boost, which will be nice. Getting our naval forces nicely trained in the art of carrier warfare is always a good thing. What else do I need? I need, before I do anything else, to get the carrier fighters and the carrier bombers producing for all of the aircraft carriers we're going to be building. So let's do something like that, and let's actually put the bombers higher up than the fighters. I realize, well, maybe not. We'll do that. It really doesn't matter. We're going to need both for all of our ships. If we take a look at our current aircraft payload, 8 naval bombers and 8 fighters, 16 fighters. We have the ability to carry 55. We're going to be changing those around quite a bit. Same as over on the Lexington classes. But critically, the Midway, or are we building Midways? What are we building now? Yorktowns? Yeah, the Yorktowns, the Midways. Those are the ships. I mean, we're producing them, so we're going to need a lot of them. And in fact, I can probably get 2 more queued to go for the Pacific Fleet. There we go. So there's the future of the fleet. Well, the future flagships of the fleet, I guess. When it comes to battleships, we're still going to be building them. But what we're going to be going for are the super battleships. So what's nice about those is obviously if you decide to start building a fleet around the super battleships or utilizing the super battleships in your fleet, you don't have to worry about the upgrades in the 1940 class. You go from 36 to 44. So the ships last longer is basically the plan there. And really, when it comes to battleship usage in the fleet, they're mainly going to be used for bombarding, assisting in naval landings and the like. Obviously, they'll be incredibly useful when it comes to fighting in the open seas, but for the most part, I want battleships in the fleet just so we can bombard shorelines and assist the naval landings as best we possibly can. The day of the presidential election has arrived. Incumbent Franklin Delano Roosevelt has already implemented several of the programs referred collectively to as the New Deal, intended to take the U.S. out of the Great Depression. While many of the efforts have been popular, his plans to further extend the role and power of the government have been met with criticism from his opponent, Republican Alf Landon. Alf, eh? Wonder if he's going to be interested in the Alf League. Coming from the oil industry, Landon wants to see greater economic freedom, while Roosevelt and the Democratic Party want to expand Social Security and ensure economic stability. The election may be a close call or a major victory for the Democrats. We're going to go for the 4 more years, just because that whole ideology drift defense is not good, so we'll go that route. We got some more research to do, and it feels like we're finally coming out of the production research, although radios would be good. And I think... Oops. Next up, well, we got the Brooklyn class, so we're good on cruisers. We might want some more up-to-date destroyers, though. Although, there's many other things we'll want, like support weapons. So let's research machine guns before we worry about researching anything else. That would be a good idea. We've almost got the Gulf Fleet done. We've got 1 more destroyer being built for them. And then it'll be the capital ships for the Pacific and the Atlantic fleets, which will be good. We're coming along. We got what? We should have 12 there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Nope, we're going to need 5 more. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll get 5 more built, and then we can have some good production of carrier aircraft, which will be very, very useful. As, you know, as is pretty obvious. Why can't I box select? There we go. These guys are almost done their training, which will be good. We've got 11 army experience, so we can modify a division if we want to. Nothing really to modify yet, though. So we'll leave these guys, and we'll leave those points accumulated. What do we got? We're going to need some more chromium, aren't we? Okay, well, let's go to the UK, and let's get some more chromium. Keep them liking us. Hopefully. Look at that. We got the Yorktown done for the Atlantic fleet. So next up, we'll start cycling through there. And then I think what we'll do is, especially for the Caribbean fleet, we'll get some light cruisers in there to pad things out. Although the Atlantic fleet certainly needs some more. And I would imagine the Pacific fleet needs some more. Although they've got quite a lot of heavy cruisers there. Might want to pull some of them out and send them over to the Gulf fleet as well. Let's do that. Let's snag 2 of those. So, we're going to want... Where are my cruisers? Did I pass them? No. We'll take the Salt Lake City and the Pensacola. And we will rebase those guys over to Miami as well. We might need to boost the size of the port in Miami. I'm not against that idea in the slightest. It would probably be a good idea, especially since, you know, we'll be shipping supplies theoretically out of Miami and into at least Cuba, if not other locations. So we'll definitely have that considered. Not much I can research there. I don't know if researching the Flying Fortress right now is all that good of an idea. We're going to have to research it eventually anyway. Or maybe the M2 light tank that we're never going to produce. We still need to get that research done, so we might as well. Alright. 2 cruisers have arrived. The Caribbean fleet. It remains named the Caribbean fleet, so that is great news. Great news. We can get some light cruisers produced for that later as well. Thankfully, light cruisers get built relatively quickly, especially compared to aircraft carriers. So, yay, that's good news. In fact, we might as well queue that up. Maybe 6 of them for the Caribbean fleet. That should be good. Alright, well, we've got a good plan order built up for the, or plan order set for the buildup of the U.S. fleet. We're waiting on expanding the Marine Corps so we can get some research into actually building the Marine Corps. I think now's a pretty good time to leave the episode there. So let's go and call this proper. Well, we can just call it the USA. Overwrite my previous fascist game. And that's it. So thumbs up if you have enjoyed today's video. Leave your comments, questions, concerns, thoughts, jokes, musings, what have you below. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.